Welcome to Petersen Car Week. My name's Alan Peltier. I'm the president and CEO of HRE Performance Wheels, and today we're going to talk all about wheels. Construction, materials, how we design them, engineer them, and of course, how we make them. So who are we? HRE Wheels is a forged wheel manufacturer based in Vista, California. We make one-piece, two-piece, and three-piece forged wheels for sports cars, exotic cars, luxury cars, SUVs, and typically our forged wheels are going to range from, say, $5,000 to $15,000 a set. On the entry-level side, we have our Flowform series, which comes in more like $2,500 a set. And we're also working on our HRE 3D Plus wheels, which are 3D printed wheels, but those are still in development, so pricing hasn't been defined yet. As many of you know, wheels can be made in many different ways. We have one-piece, two-piece, three-piece, we have cast versus forged versus flow-formed, and even 3D printed. I want to go over the difference in each of those methods and which ones we use here at HRE so you have a great understanding of how wheels are made. First off, it's best to understand the difference between one-piece, two-piece, and three-piece wheels. One-piece wheels are what you can imagine. It's made of one solid piece. Now that can be cast, forged, flow-formed, and we'll get into those differences in a second. A two-piece wheel has a separate center section and a rim barrel, and typically those are bolted together, but it can be done other ways. On a three-piece wheel, you have a separate center section, but you have two different rim halves of varying widths, inner and an outer, and that gives you a lot of fitment flexibility. Moving beyond construction, a question we always get asked is, what's the difference between forged, cast, and flow-formed? A cast wheel is kind of what you can imagine. You take molten aluminum and pour it into a mold, and after some detail machining and some processing, you pretty much have a complete wheel. So forged starts out differently. It starts with a solid piece of billet, which gets put into a die, and using a lot of heat and pressure gets formed into the desired shape of the forging. Now that forging process changes the crystalline structure of the aluminum, making it significantly stronger than it was in its raw billet state. After it's been forged, the next step is to create the rim barrel. And the process used to do that is called flow forming. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this forging and put it on a big spinning mandrel. And you're going to use a lot of pressure to squeeze this aluminum out into the full width of the barrel. And what that does is, just like with the forging process, that squeezing of the aluminum refines the crystalline structure in the barrel and allows it to be significantly stronger than if we didn't. That allows us to make it thinner and lighter. So for our flow-form wheels, they start out like a traditional cast wheel where you can use the molten aluminum to cast the center style. The difference is we're not going to cast the full barrel. We're actually just going to cast a skirt, just like we have on the one-piece forging. So after it's been cast, we're going to take it and put it on a mandrel, just like we did with the one-piece forging, and we're going to flow form out the barrel. The advantage of flow forming, just like forging, is that it changes the crystalline structure of the aluminum, making it significantly stronger. This allows us to make it significantly lighter, and it resists impact much better than a traditional cast wheel. Okay, so for our three-piece wheels, the rims are made a little bit differently. So unlike starting with a solid casting or forging, our three-piece rims actually start with a solid sheet of aluminum. But similar to the flow forming process, it's going to get put on a mandrel and spun out into the desired shape. So you can spin this, basically you fold the sheet over and spin it into the shape that you need. You do that both for the inner and the outer, and they both come together to make the combinations that you want for a three-piece wheel. So our two-piece and three-piece wheels are made a little bit differently than our one-piece monoblock in that instead of the whole profile in one piece, the forging consists only of the center. So we'll take this forging, and after it's been machined and finished to the final specifications, we'll mate it to either the 2-piece FMR barrel or our 3-piece rims to make a complete wheel. So one of the most exciting new offerings from us on the forged side is our new Series S1 SC. It consists of a forged center and our new FMR barrel. So what makes the FMR exciting for us is that it's made almost exactly like a one-piece forged wheel. It starts out as a forging, it gets flow formed. The only difference is, after it's all done, we cut out the center section to make just a rim barrel that we can then bolt the center into. The advantage of the FMR barrel is that it's stronger and lighter, and it doesn't require the air seal between the two rim halves like on a traditional 3-piece rim. In addition, because it's fully CNC turned, we can control all the dimensions very accurately, so it's going to run truer than a 3-piece rim. So for most of our forged wheels, we're talking about machining away the aluminum, and that's subtractive manufacturing. But one of the projects we've been working on recently with GE Additive is our HRE 3D Plus program, which is additive manufacturing or 3D printing. For this project, we weren't just looking at 3D printing, we were looking at 3D printing titanium and mating that with a carbon barrel. As you can see with 3D printing, the amount of design freedom we have is simply unmatched compared to a normal machining process. There are still a lot of challenges to overcome to get something like this to market, but we're committed to new manufacturing methods and new materials because we know that's the future. So to be an HRE wheel, it needs to accomplish two things. One, it has to be gorgeous, and two, it has to perform. And by perform, I mean it needs to be strong, it needs to be light, it has to have low rotational inertia, and for high performance cars, it needs to have high stiffness. The way we ensure these traits is by doing a lot of computer analysis, namely FEA or finite element analysis. That allows us to finely tune the design in the computer before we ever start cutting any aluminum. So everybody knows high performance wheels need to be lightweight, but why? Well, there's two major reasons. One, unsprung mass, and two, rotational inertia. Unsprung mass is all the mass that's not supported by this suspension, so the wheels, tires, brakes. And the reason you want the unsprung mass to be low is so that when the wheel hits a disturbance or something like that, it's going to put less force into the vehicle chassis, and so you're going to get better ride comfort and better vehicle control if you're on the racetrack. Now the other aspect is rotational inertia. And rotational inertia is the distribution of the mass around the wheel's rotational axis. A good example for that is an ice skater. So if you're an ice skater and you have your arms out and you're spinning slowly, and then you pull your arms in, you start spinning faster. You haven't reduced your mass, but you have reduced your rotational inertia. The reason that matters is acceleration and, more important, deceleration. So if you have low rotational inertia, as you're diving into that corner, your stopping distances are going to be significantly shorter than if you have a really big, heavy wheel that's going to keep pushing you on. At HRE, we offer a lot of custom finishes, but one thing that's really unique is we offer 3 different finishes to the bare aluminum before we put on our different clear coats. So this is our stone finish, which gives it a unique marbled look. This is our popular hand brush finish. And this is our polish finish, in this case, a frozen polished bronze. So after you pick one of our 3 base metal finishes, either the stone, brushed, or polish, you could pick whether you want it to be full clear or any of our colored clears, and then whether or not you want it to be gloss or satin. So now that we've given you a quick overview of our wheels, let's go out in the shop and show you how we make them. Facility here in Vista, California. It's 60,000 square feet. This is where we house our design, engineering, sales, and marketing, and finance, and obviously our manufacturing. So the first step in machining is lathing. That's where we're going to come in and we're going to cut the precise profile needed for each particular style. So the next step in machining is milling. This is where we're going to go in and cut out all of the spoke features and all of the design details. So the milling can take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour for something simple like this, or it can take several hours on something that's more common for us, and up to 9 hours in our most difficult styles. One of the major investments we made 3 years ago was to connect all of our horizontal mills to this cell system. It uses a robot to automatically load and unload the machines. This allows us to run 24/7, 7 days a week, lights out. So this is the control panel for the cell system where we can see all the different stations. But one really neat thing about this is we have all of the computer data from the work order gets sent down to the mills directly. So all the machining specifications are fed directly to the mills without needing any additional user input. So after the wheels go through machining, they're going to go through a rigorous QC check. The machine we use to do this is called a CMM. It allows us to precisely check critical dimensions very, very accurately. What's also really neat about the CMM, it allows us to track the QC data and look at trends and see if there's anything that's trending out before we go out of tolerance. So after our wheels pass machining QC, they're going to go to the prep room. This is where we're going to hand prep out any machining lines before they go into the tumblers. And this is where we're also going to do our really nice hand brush finishes. So these are our media tumblers. This is where we're going to do the first basic prep step before we send the wheels on to powder coat. So for our standard powder coats, all the wheels are going to go through this media tumbler. This is going to create a really nice consistent finish that allows the powder coat to lay down nice and smoothly. For all of our translucent powder coats, we offer 3 different metal finishes. The first being what we call stone, and that's after it's gone through this coarse media tumbler and it creates a very unique marbled finish. The second base finish we offer is our brush finish. As you can see, it's done by hand. It can take several hours per wheel depending on the complexity of the design. What's neat about our brush finish, it's never going to be perfectly uniform. But that really highlights the fact that this has been done by hand by an artisan versus a machine. So the third metal finish we offer is our ceramic ball polish. After going through the first media tumbler, it's going to spend some time in this second media tumbler here. And then the final step for our polish is going to go into this ceramic media, which is going to get it to a nice bright polish. So after prep, the wheels come to the cleaning station to get prepared for powder coat. The very first step in cleaning is it's going to go through this high temperature washer. Honestly, it's kind of like an industrial dishwasher, but it does a great job of removing all the contaminants before we move it downstream. So after cleaning, our wheels are going to go into powder coat. Powder coat is a fine powder that's electrostatically charged and applied to the wheels. Once it goes into the oven, it's going to cure into a nice, robust paint. Time and temperature are really critical during the cure, though, because if you have it in at too high of a temperature, you can easily damage the forged aluminum. So after our wheels come out of powder coat, they're going to go through an inspection and get touched up if necessary. For our 2-piece and 3-piece wheels, one key step is final assembly. We're going to attach our centers to our 3-piece rims or our 2-piece FMR barrel. So before assembly, we're going to check for any finish flaws and do any touch-up as necessary. One thing to realize about assembly is that the fasteners are not decorative. They're actually structural and holding all of the parts together. So all of our standard stainless and optional titanium fasteners are supplied by ARP, because they're well known in the racing world for their high quality and strength. After assembly, all of our wheels move on to a final QC, where we're going to double check a lot of the critical dimensions and specifications before the wheels move on to packaging and shipping. So now that we know how our wheels are made, let's go see how they look on a couple cars. So here we have a really important car for HRE this year, and that's the new Corvette C8. This one's owned by Boost District, and we're here. It's going to get a supercharger that's going to give it maybe up to another 300 horsepower. this one's got a speed core carbon aero kit with a front splitter and side skirt, and we're hearing it's the very first one they've made for the C8. So as we head to the back, this one's got the optional high wing. So on the Corvette, we have our new S1 SC series. In this case, an S101 SC in polished dark clear with the FMR barrel in brushed dark clear. This one's also got our optional carbon fiber cap. So this is a great example of a target market car for us. This one's brought to us by TAG Motorsports, one of our dealers. This is a 2020 Ferrari tailor-made 488 Pista, which means they got to pick custom finishes and custom interior. I mean, you got to check it out. This one also has a full Novatec carbon aero package with Inconel exhaust and suspension. I mean, it's awesome. So here we have our S101 SC in a frozen dark clear and the FMR barrel in a brushed dark clear. This one's got the hidden hardware option where the fasteners are coming from the back so you don't see them from the face. Just as most HREs, this one's running on Michelin's, in this case PS4S, which is a wonderful all-around high-performance tire. Now we got to check out the interior. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. From all of us at HRE, we hope to see you soon.
Shine and protect your car in 5 minutes with Sonax Spray and Seal. Wash and rinse your vehicle, then while still wet, spray the sealant on the car. Rinse immediately and towel dry. It's that easy. Details at sonaxusa.com.
Welcome. I'm Parris Mullins, Motorsport Director for O'Gara Motorsport, and I thought I'd give you a tour of some of the special cars we have here in our facility out at the Thermal Club. Starting with this car right here, Porsche 911 GT2 RS, flat 6 twin turbo motor, 690 horsepower, rear wheel drive, which makes it a very fun car to drive. This particular car is very special because it has many options from Porsche's Special Wishes program. As an owner, you can submit requests like paint to sample, which is what this car has, and the sample that was provided was actually off of a Lamborghini of all cars. It was off the introductory color for the Aventador Roadster, which is a color called Azzurro Thades. It's a silverish blue color, much like Grigio alloy on Ferrari. There's a couple other colors out there like it, but it's a very interesting color depending on what lighting you have it in. If you've got it outside in direct sunlight, you can really see the blue come out, but perfect color on this car. The contrast between the kind of the richness and kind of almost call it a very like gentlemanly color. The carbon fiber really contrasts well up against it. Some of the other special features on the car is actually in the door sill. There's actually the Nürburgring lap record time that it's set, that's illuminated. Satin black magnesium wheels with a color matched bead around the outside of the rim. The air conditioning vents also have the same Azzurro Thetis color. Coming over here, 570 GT4. So this is a proper race car. Competes in the GT4 category. So this starts life as a McLaren 570S and is converted into a GT4 spec race car by the addition of a roll cage. They take out the electronic suspension and put in normal coilover suspension that's found on a race car. Steel brakes instead of carbon ceramic brakes, proper race seat, fire extinguisher system, air jack system, all the stuff to make it a proper race car and be able to compete in the GT4 series. The 570 has 570 horsepower. This is actually detuned so that it can race in its category at around 440 horsepower, but we are able to flash the ECU and bring it back to its normal 570 horsepower. It's a great car that you can kind of almost have two cars. Detune it to GT4 spec or bump up the horsepower and have a wickedly fast GT4 car. This car is also particularly special because of the livery. It was also one of 6 cars that was made for us through our McLaren Beverly Hills store. We're an official motorsport dealer for McLaren, and this was a livery that we came up with that kind of pays homage to McLaren's current Formula One cars, but also the launch of the 720 GT3 car, which was done in this traditional McLaren orange, and with this, I think they call it Burton blue. We've got over here Super Trofeo car, another special car in a very special livery. This is actually all painted on. Most race cars, you'd see that there are graphics that are applied. This is actually paint. This is actually Bianco Apollos, which was a special color that they did actually on the Gallardo anniversary car. So this car competes in the Super Trofeo series, which I believe is still the fastest one-make series out there. The same V10 that can be found in the road car with all of its horsepower, 620 horsepower. Car weighs roughly 3,000 pounds, which makes for a lot of fun. So this was a one-off that was made for a customer. You can even see the wheels have the color match bead on the outside. All the carbon that is on it is done in a gloss finish, where usually we're used to seeing a dry satin carbon. The number placard on the side says 63, which we know is 1963, which is the date of inception for Lamborghini when they started. Super exciting car, and usually, like I said, you don't see such details and refinement on a race car, but this is something really special made for this customer. Moving on to its bigger brother, but ironically less horsepower. It is also a V10, but it is slightly detuned to 580 horsepower to compete in the GT3 category, much like how the GT4 is detuned so that it can compete with its rivals. Very different from the Super Trofeo in the sense that it has a lot of aerodynamics going on. The car is much wider, much lower. So even though it's down on horsepower, it actually produces a much quicker lap time than the Super Trofeo. This car, again, like the other cars, very special livery. This is done in the same color that the car won the 24 Hours of Daytona with, but it's done in a satin finish. All the logos you see on it commemorate its big win at the 24 Hours of Daytona. The number placard down here also has signatures from all the drivers that were from the winning team. Moving on, we've got the Senna GTR. Just like when you wouldn't think that the Senna could be any crazier, McLaren went and kind of turned it up to 11. So this car is the track-only version of the Senna. The car has 814 horsepower out of its twin-turbo V8. And as you can see, especially if you've spent time looking at a street Senna, very extensive aero. I mean, everything has been redesigned at the front. The rear is completely different. You've got these huge end plates on the wing that go all the way behind the rear wheel. It's not homologated for any racing series. This is purely a track toy, the ultimate track toy. And again, very special livery on this car as well. It is finished in what McLaren calls the Brazil Aero. It was done for us through McLaren's MSO program, which is McLaren Special Operations. And the car basically pays homage to Ayrton Senna, but mainly using the colors from his helmet, which are the Brazilian colors. So obviously the base kind of metallic yellow, and then you've got these green, basically arrow lines that fade into the same dark blue. Another little special detail on the car is the Electroform badge found on the front, which you usually don't see that on race cars, but it's a nice little special touch. And last but not least, certainly not least, we have Kimi Räikkönen's Formula One car from 2006, the MP421. The car is absolutely stunning, probably has the coolest livery out of all the ones that I've shown you. So this was actually the first year to feature the, what we'll call, I guess, liquid chrome paint job that McLaren and Mercedes developed for their cars, which is just striking. And it went on to go on to some of the famous Vodafone cars of that era. Don't know the exact horsepower of the car, 750, 800, but super special car. You could just stare at it for hours and hours looking at all the little details, all the aero bits, all the engineering, all the manpower that went in to put this thing around the track in 2006. Anyway, I just want to thank you for joining us. I hope I shared with you some details you didn't already know. And be well and be safe. We'll see you soon.
First Republic Bank presents First Things First. At First Republic Bank, first refers to our first priority, the clients who walk through our doors. The first step? Recognize that every client is an individual with unique needs. First decree: be a bank whose currency is service in the form of personal banking. This was First Republic's mission from our very first day. It's still the first thing on our minds.
On behalf of the Peninsula Hotel's signature events, it is an honor and privilege to present to you the digital version of the Quail, a Motorsports Gathering. Each year, the Quail showcases automotive history as well as latest offerings and future innovations from some of the world's leading car manufacturers. Paired with the unbeatable natural surroundings of Quail Lodge and Golf Club and renowned food and beverage, the Quail is truly a lifestyle event. Although we are unable to gather in person this year, we are proud to celebrate the essence of the show by awarding one vehicle with the Spirit of the Quail Award. Each year, the Quail Motorsports Council chooses an enthusiast car that best represents the true spirit of motoring. The selection includes design, driving experience, performance for its era, engineering innovation, and timelessness. The Motorsports Council for weeks have been reviewing applications, photos, and videos in search of a vehicle that best exemplifies the spirit of the Quail. We were overwhelmed with the response and applications received. From veteran entrants to new ones, we heard from you all, and for that we thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to now introduce you to Gordon McCall, co-founder of the event and director of the Motorsports Council. He will be sharing our 6 finalists. We hope you enjoy, and thank you for tuning in.
Well, Courtney, thank you very much for that kind introduction. It certainly is a thrill to work with you and the entire Peninsula Signature Events team here at the Quail Lodge and Golf Club. This Spirit of the Quail Award is really, really special, and I know you touched on that. Maybe a little bit of background might help with how it is that we come about who wins the award. We've always viewed it as a significant award. It's not your ordinary award. It's very subjective and has lots of components to it. So I'm going to read a little bit between the lines. So you explained how it is the criteria that we choose the award, but the between the lines part is really that emotional side. And we all know that anybody that shows a car anywhere in the world, it's an effort. It's a really big effort. For some, it's a bigger effort than others. But it is an effort, and we like to acknowledge that. And so the Spirit of the Quail has a lot to do as much with the person that owns the car as it does with the actual car itself, because we love hearing the stories of what it takes to get a car to our show. So that's a little bit of the between the lines backstory. I'd like to fill you in, and this might be helpful to as to some of our previous Quail winners, our Spirit of the Quail Award winners. Last year we had an amazing Ferrari 335S owned by Cavallino Investments out of Ohio. It was a huge effort to get that car to our show, and as our guests noticed, it was a very worthy recipient of the award. Really incredible car. One of our all-time favorites was in 2018 when we awarded the 1979 Tamiya Sand Scorcher, which is literally a full-scale model of the Cox 0.49 model that so many of us had as kids. I hope we've got some great images to share with you on the screen. That was Dean Lanzani, and he shipped that car over from the United Kingdom, and it just buckled people's knees. To see that full-scale VW off-road bug with a full-scale remote controller, it was off the charts, and we really enjoyed honoring that car. Again, the story that brought that car to our show is what made it so interesting. We've also had a 1938 Packard 8 model 1601 Cabriolet from the Bob Lee collection. You know, this is a car that you don't really think of in terms of the Quail, a full classic like that. But again, the effort that Anne Brockington Lee went to get that car to our show, to share it with everyone, was really remarkable. So those are just some examples of previous winners, which will bring us to our 6 finalists for this year's virtual Spirit of the Quail Award. This was not an easy decision for our Quail Motorsports Council. Let me tell you, there was a lot of thought put into the selection process. It came down to 6, which includes Fritz Kaiser's 1968 Lamborghini Miura P400.
The 1968 Lamborghini Miura P400 with the number 3586 is the protagonist of the memorable climb to the great San Bernard Pass in the opening scenes of the famous cult movie of the late 60s, The Italian Job. The car is currently the stage queen of the exhibition Pop Lamborghini at the National French Automotive Museum in Mulhouse in France. We at the Kaiser Collection are the current custodian of this important and famous car. It's really a wonderful car, and we are very happy to bring this Miura back to the top of the classic car world.
Incredibly gorgeous Lamborghini Miura. Joseph Salvo's 67 911S soft window Targa Porsche.
My name is Joseph Salvo, and my wife Shella and I own this 1967 Porsche 911S soft window Targa. Some unique features to this car. 1967 was the first year of the S-Class for Porsche and the 911s. 1967 was also the first year of the Targa Top, replacing the 356 convertible. Very few were built. This is one of 483. Unique to this car is that it was actually purchased and driven for 2 years by the first Porsche dealer in Orange County, Chick Iverson. Chick sold it to the gentleman that we were able to purchase it from in August of 2017. We purchased it with all of the documentation, the original paperwork, even the gentleman's finance docs, and it subsequently went through a 24-month nut and bolt frame-off restoration by Car Park in Costa Mesa. Nothing was left untouched. Every part, every nut, every bolt was restored to as original factory condition, and that's the condition that you see it in today.
Beautiful car. Joe Hurwich with a 1949 Alfa Romeo 6C 2500 SS Cabriolet body by Pininfarina.
Hi, I'm glad to present my 1949 Alfa Romeo 6C 2500 Supersport by Pininfarina. We're going to take a good look at the interior of the car. You can see the Art Deco and pre-war look of the car. All of the original accoutrements that went along with it. Now I'm going to open the hood on this side, and in here we'll be able to see the traditional 3 carburetors that are indicative of the Supersport model. Walking around the front end again, we'll take a look at the other side of the motor. Here you can see the 6 cylinders, or 6 spark plugs, excuse me, and the condition of the interior is really quite nice. Interior of the engine compartment. And that's kind of the story of my Alfa Romeo. This is my 4th Alfa, and it's my favorite ride as of 2020. Thanks for listening to my story.
Stunning post-war Alfa Romeo. Barry Connolly in his 1964 Triumph Spitfire, I think pulls everyone's heartstrings.
Hello, this is Barry Connolly with my 1964 Triumph Spitfire. It was originally bought by my father in 1964, and he raced it extensively in Texas in the mid to late 60s. He kept it all these years because he won the 1967 Terlingua Challenge that Carroll Shelby used to put on every year in West Texas. And he also won the 1965 and 1964 championships in Texas, the regional championships, so it was special to him for all these years. He garaged it in 1973, and when he got into his early 80s, he tried to restore it to get it running. And I was still in the Navy at the time, so I would take time off from the Navy and come out and help him. And eventually we got it running, at which point he gave me the car, and that was in 2011.
Just a wonderful little Triumph Spitfire that's been in the family since new, and it's just a lovely little car. Joseph Storm with his 1968 Ferrari 365 GT.
My name is Joe Storm, and this is my 1968 Ferrari 365 GT. There were a total of 801 models made during this 4-year period, and this represented Ferrari's most successful production vehicle up to that point, and also represented the pinnacle of innovation and engineering. So I found the car in Boston approximately 8 years ago, and it was in fair driver condition. We brought the car back, and I slowly went through restoring the car from the suspension to redoing the electronics to taking it to a great shop in Northern California, Frank Zucchi Restoration, and we took the car down to metal, and we went through it on a concourse level full body restoration that has taken about 5.5 years to complete. It's been a labor of love and a whole lot of fun these past 8 years getting the car to this state. Thanks for watching.
Beautiful Grand Touring Ferrari with a wonderful hands-on restoration story behind it. And Anne Brockington Lee, who I just mentioned is a previous Spirit of the Quail winner, with her 1933 Duesenberg SJ.
I'm Ann Lee, and this is the 1933 Duesenberg Fishtail Speedster, model SJ by Wayman, chassis number J508. It was commissioned in 1933 by the eccentric millionaire George Whitell of Lake Tahoe and shown that same year at the New York Auto Show. It's had 4 owners: George Whitell, Bill Howard in 1962, General William Lyon in 1986, and Bob Lee starting in 1995. To me, this is the ultimate in a preservation car because it is 100% original. All of its parts, its paint, chrome, tires, and upholstery, and it's been lovingly cared for, maintained, and driven by each owner. George Whitell was an honorary fire marshal in Woodside, California, and this siren was given to him by that fire department. Now when we show this car at concours and we go over the ramp to share it with the crowd, this is my favorite part of the car.
Stunning black and white, full-blown 30s era roadster that just is incredible. So that's going to bring us up to the winner of this year's Petersen Museum Virtual Car Week, Spirit of the Quail. And that winner is none other than the 1949 Alfa Romeo 6C 2500 SS Cabriolet, body by Pininfarina, and the owner is Joe Hurwicz. Joe is an amazing guy and very deserving of this award. Joe's been showing cars with us for 6 or 7 years. He brings his spirit with him to our show every year, and it's infectious. You know, Joe restored this car out of a complete labor of love. He has sent us file upon file of the restoration process. This car literally went from a series of boxes to the completed car that you see on your screen. Just a stunning post-war Alfa Romeo. We've had, I believe, 4 Best of Show Alfa Romeo winners in our 17-year history of our show. 3 of those are pre-war. We did have 1 post-war Alfa, but this just epitomizes a sports car for one. The history that Alfa Romeo has is phenomenal. I don't think there's an enthusiast out there that the history of Alfa Romeo doesn't resonate with. I think we're all enthusiasts of the brand. And so, Joe, your enthusiasm, your commitment to restoring that car, your commitment to getting that car to us in this virtual show is something that we appreciate, and we're rewarding you with the Spirit of the Quail Award. So, Joe, congratulations, and we look forward to seeing you and all of you at our 2021 Quail Motorsports Gathering next year when we get to do it live in person. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the show.
Hi, I'm Joe Hurwicz, and this is my 1949 Alfa Romeo 6C 2500 Supersport by Pininfarina. Some say there were 70 of these made, some say there were only 10 or 15. Nobody seems to know. This car was originally sold in 1949 to a toothpaste magnate in Milano. By 1959, it had made its way to New York. Subsequent to that, we lost track of it for a little bit. 1976, it was sold to an individual in 47 boxes. That person planned on restoring it. 20 years later, he sold it in the same 47 boxes. 20 years later, it was sold in the same 47 boxes to an Eastern European restorer, and I bought it from that restorer in 2018. The original mileage, the mileage on the car when it was restored was 47,000 kilometers. Because of the 40 years in storage, we actually believe that could be the original amount of mileage on this car. Thank you for listening to my case.
It was my 1971 2002